Hello you lovely lot and welcome to my channel. I'm Katie and today we are on Witchy Things to Draw number 7. Today is a 2-prompter with a galaxy being one and an enchanted elder tree be the other, so I'm going to mash them two up and create a piece based on both. I thought it would be kind of hard to actually draw a galaxy using a regular lead pencil, so I thought I would just play about with a colour scheme I had in mind. And since coloured pencils kind of work okay on here, I didn't see the point in passing up an opportunity. I wanted to get some very nice yellow tones in this galaxy, as well as some pinks and blues, and I found a really good way of doing that without your yellows combining with the blue to create a rather spooky green, which is fine if that's what you want. However, sometimes when using yellow clouds, I guess, on a blue background, as you would kind of get hinted in a galaxy, it is easy to get a green in there, so I find using a purple or a pink kind of just alleviates that a little. If you create a little halo around it, it works quite nicely. Now, near to where I live there are some elder trees and I've noticed they're quite spindly. They've had some white blossom on them recently as well, which has been very nice. But apart from that, silhouette wise, it kind of just looks like a tree, which is what I'm going to go with. I just sketch out a few ideas for frames and composition before moving on to what will be the final piece. This didn't require me to use both of the pages in the book to do it. A tree's a tree and a galaxy is a galaxy, so I pretty much dived straight in there. Now, today's chosen medium is going to be watercolours, and they're not really any specific ones. I have a tin where I squeeze tubes into pans and they live in there. And there's a range from Daniel Smith, Winsor & Newton Professional, as well as student grade. There's some Sennelier in there, some Van Gogh. There's a bit of everything in there, and that's where I keep them all. And I thought they would be ideal for today. I wanted to mask some areas off as well for the twinkling stars, as well as the framework. I used tape for the main areas, and then for all those little swirly twiddly bits I went in there with the masking pen. I also thought it would be nice to add a little bit of highlight on the top of the tree, perhaps to suggest that blossom that I was on about, as well as where light might hit on the tree trunk and the nearby grass. And we all know I am a big lover of masking fluid pens. They are just so much easier, especially for small areas. After giving everywhere a real good soaking with the brush, I thought I would dive straight in there with those colours and do a wet and wet technique for the galaxy in the background. That same principle applies from when I was experimenting with the coloured pencils. Using pinks and purples to transition from yellows to night sky blues is the way forward for me if you don't want it to go green. I mean, if you do want it to go green, that's fine, and I'm totally for that as well. But for this picture and a traditional galaxy scene, those are the colours I wanted. After establishing where I wanted the yellow bits to be in the sky, I would just keep flooding it with more of those purples and the magenta-y pinks, and yeah, I'm really happy with it. And once it dried really nicely. It had a bit of texture in there, and I was very happy with it. It's not very often I paint galaxies. For the tree itself, I went in there with much darker tones. I obviously wanted it to be a silhouette and to stand out, so using something with a slight contrast of colours and obviously a much deeper tone just seemed to do the trick. I was also planning for those little areas where I'd masked out with the fluid to really make everything stand out and pop. But we'll come to that in a bit, because that part of this process presented one or two obstacles. I introduced a few other darker shades in there, so there's hints of greens and there's hints of blues and blacks in there as well, and I don't often use black on watercolours. However, this was a nice granulating, I think it might have been Lunar Black by Daniel Smith, and I just liked the texture, so there was just enough in there to add a bit of movement, but not to overwhelm and for it to look odd. I also extended those colours onto the grass embankment beneath the tree. Again, I don't want to go too detailed with this. It's more of a suggestion, and to a certain extent this tree is kind of part of the border and kind of not. The galaxy is the main detail and the tree's partially framing it alongside with the Art Nouveau frame I've added, but you'll see where I'm getting to with this. For the hills in the background, I thought this would be a nice opportunity to get some of those galaxy colours ever so slightly reflected on the tops of the peaks there. And again, this is to make it a little bit more cohesive, and as well it helps that tree in the foreground stand out, but I guess not to have it just floating there on this hill. Now, I'll be honest with you, landscapes are not my forte, and it is something I do want to practice a little bit more. Now, here's where the problems with the masking fluid happened. Because I'd used a heat gun to dry the page, and sometimes this happens and that masking fluid doesn't want to move. And for a little while I was thinking maybe I hadn't given it enough coverage and the paint had seeped through, because obviously the masking fluid I've used has a blue tinge to it. So I persevered and removed as much as I could, but as you can see, especially on some of the borders on the arch, especially in fact, it wasn't coming off. I was using an eraser. I'd nearly given my finger a blister just trying to remove this. So I thought, I'm gonna calm down. I'm gonna fill in the edge of the picture and just tidy up some of those edges and think of what I can do. And I had a wonderful eureka moment which I didn't share on camera. I was getting to a stage thinking I might have to abandon this and start again, which is just something I don't want to do. So on one last desperate attempt, I used the eraser from the March Up crate. It was an electrical rotating eraser, and I'll leave a link for that video towards the end on the end card, you know what I mean, if you haven't seen it. For some reason, I thought, let's just see if it can lift off those last bits of masking fluid, and my goodness, it did. If you're not a fan of using them to remove pencil marks, then they are going to at least help remove a lot of residual masking fluid which was left over in my instance, and I am so glad I discovered this little technique. I promise if this happens again, which no doubt it will, I will share that on screen just so you guys can see just how effective that is, and it's a step over one of those hurdles you come across when using this medium, unfortunately. And with having that nice lovely white paper underneath, I thought a yellow border would look really nice and have a really nice contrast. I quite like how it has an illuminated feel, and as soon as I added the edging around the border, that's pretty much the same thing, right? But it really did start to make it pop. I also went in with a deeper yellow just to give a bit of tone, a bit of a third dimension to it, if you will, and introduce a warmer yellow which just matches up ever so slightly with the yellow in the background. I'm quite glad I had the tree to the side just so you could see the galaxy a lot better. I think if I'd had the tree in the middle, you would have lost the point with that nebula thing going on in the background there. And I'm not going to say it's cheating, but I am glad as well that I didn't have to sort of use a gel pen or a Posca pen to add those highlights in there. So all in all, a well-balanced piece. And all that's left to do is to add my signature, and we are pretty much done. I do hope you have enjoyed this video. I have really enjoyed painting this one and sharing it with you guys. As always, I would love to hear what you say in the comments. And of course, I'd love to hear if you're enjoying this series. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It really is helping me grow, and it would be really nice to have you as part of this little community on here. And there should be a few videos or a playlist or two on screen right now that I think you're going to enjoy. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye!